welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Joanna. It is about to be 10 o'clock at night and I'm recording this. My kids are in the other room with my husband, hopefully sleeping. Today's date is April 22nd, 2022. It is the 5-year anniversary of the assault that resulted in my amputation. If you're new here, my name is Joanna. My channel, Just Joanna. I am anything but just. I am a wife, mom, domestic violence survivor, amputee, and so much more. We are in part 5 of a series that I'm hoping to wrap up. If not this video, then for sure the next one. Part 5, with it being the anniversary of my amputation, I am going to finally publicly speak about the events leading up to what ultimately resulted in my amputation and the loss of my right leg. I want to share a very lengthy, detailed disclaimer for legal purposes. I typed it all out because I didn't want to miss anything, so forgive me for looking at my computer screen as I read this, but for legal reasons, events, scenarios, and situations of the like depicted in today's video are speculation and not true. Any mention of crime or criminal activity is false unless the accused has been indicted and found guilty of said crime or crimes. The actual names of the individuals involved, other than my own, will not be mentioned, or if mentioned, will be changed. The intention of the content included in today's video is not to shame, persecute, bully, or hurt in any way anyone that may or may not have been involved in the events I will be discussing. Furthermore, my channel does not tolerate, condone, nor promote bullying or harassment of any sort. Any questions, concerns, or input are welcome to be added in the comment section of today's video, or you can email me personally at justjoannachannel@gmail.com. Thank you all so much for understanding. So I want to backtrack to what I spoke about in my last video, which was the strangulation. I wanted to add some statistics that I found after recording and posting that video. So 1 in 4 women will experience intimate partner violence. 68% suffer near fatal strangulation. 97% of those are strangled by their abuser's bare hands. And 70% of those women believed that they were going to die the moment that they were strangled. Like I said in my last video, after that, I left my abuser only for a few months before reconciling. We were separated and I moved out. I wasn't living with him, but he convinced me that that situation only happened and he only acted that way because of his drinking, and he promised that he wouldn't drink like that again. He made all the promises that I've mentioned in all my other videos, and just like those other times, I believed him. So we reconciled. It occurred November 2015. We reconciled in April of 2016. We married in May of 2016. And the events we will discuss today occurred in April of 2017. We got married in May, and to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, I bought tickets to a concert, a Randy Rogers concert. If you don't know who Randy Rogers Band is, they're a country music band. The reason I bought tickets to that particular concert was because that band had a significance in our relationship. It was the first concert we had been to and danced together at. It's the band that we went to see the night he proposed. So yeah, we went for sentimental reasons and just because we hadn't gone out in a while. I was the one that bought the tickets. I surprised my abuser with them. And I remember getting ready that night. It was a Friday night, April 21st, Friday night, 2017. We're at home getting ready, and I remember my outfit. I picked out a sheer white little 3/4 sleeve flowy blouse. I paired it with like a little lacy bra because you could kind of see through it, and I thought it was cute. And I wore some white denim frayed shorts, high-waisted, and I wore my cowboy boots, the same boots that I wore for our wedding, which were a little big on me. And so I remember which socks I wore. This detail will prove important later on in the story, so please listen. Those boots were a little big on me, so I wore these extra thick fuzzy socks where the ankle was like a hot pink color, and then from the ankle down to the toe was a dark navy blue color. And so I remember vividly, those were the socks I had to wear because they were thicker and they helped my boots fit better. So I wore those socks. So we get to the venue, and I remember we got there pretty early because it was still light out. As soon as we get there, we go to the bar line. My abuser orders us a shot and a beer each. So we take the shot and we drink the beer. We don't chug it, we drink it. After that, maybe a little after we finished those drinks, we went back to the bar line and ordered 1 beer, 1 shot each. Took our shot, drank our beer, and those were the drinks we had prior to the Randy Rogers performance. When they started playing, I remember vividly, I was not drunk. I did feel tipsy, I guess. I was feeling really good. I remember being right up at the front of the stage. I remember exactly, we were right at the front right-hand side of the stage. And being like right up there and just being so happy in the moment, you know, singing along with their songs and just being happy. Like, it was just a good time. So I don't want to confuse anyone, but I'm gonna stop that part of the story there. and jump right into the next morning. So the next morning, I wake up and I am just groggy. I am in the hospital. I don't know what has happened. I just know I'm intubated. I cannot talk and I can't really move my body. I'm just kind of looking around the room. It's very blurry and fuzzy. And I remember coming in and out a few times. But I remember one of the times I was waking up, I saw my abuser's mother there. And I guess they had taken out the tube and I couldn't talk. My throat was so dry and it just really hurt. I couldn't get any words out. And she was trying to get the doctor to, say, like, she's trying to say something. And I remember they gave me a notepad or something to write on and a pen. And well, my right arm was wrapped up, so I couldn't use my right arm. You'll see the scars. So my right arm, it was wrapped up, so I couldn't use that, and they had it propped up on a pillow. So I had to use my left hand, because I remember thinking, trying to just evaluate the situation. Like, I knew I was in the hospital. I tried to move all my limbs, and I remember seeing my arm, and obviously I couldn't move it, but I remember specifically, I couldn't feel my right leg at all, but I could move my left arm and my left leg. So I wrote, I remember writing, I can't feel my right leg. And she just looked mortified, and she looked up at whoever was in the room, the doctor, and she just read what I had said. And then I just kind of remember coming in and out after that. And I remember coming to again and thinking again, I can't feel this body part. Nobody had told me yet, but I do remember thinking, we must have been in a car accident. I thought, where's my abuser? I was worried because my last memory up until that point was watching the concert. And so I thought, okay, we got into an accident. He's got to be here in the hospital too. Is he okay? But then I thought, okay, I was trying to make a checklist in my head. I'm here in the hospital. I'm alive. I can't feel this body part, but I can feel this other body part. My abuser isn't here. He must be in another room. Because if I'm hurt, then he's got to be hurt too. We had to have been in a car accident. And then I remember thinking, my baby, where's my baby? I thought, we couldn't have gone to pick him up. We had him with a sitter, so he's got to be safe. He's safe. He was with a sitter. He's okay. So I was kind of at ease with that, thinking my baby's okay. Well, like I said, it was a blur in the hospital, coming in and out. They had me on pain meds, I can imagine, because they finally told me that my right leg had to be amputated. And a lot of you might be surprised that I didn't just break down. I think I was processing that I was in the hospital. They didn't tell me how my leg got amputated or what happened that caused it to be amputated. So I just assumed we were in a car accident and it had to be amputated. So I was just grateful to be alive. And then later, it was my parents that told me that the police thought my abuser ran me over. I remember when they finally told me that I was ran over, and the police thought it was multiple vehicles. Oh, the police think that he was one of them. Because the police would try to come and talk to me. And after I found out that they thought it was him, you have to remember, my last memory was us having a great time. I was very protective of my abuser because my last memory does not reflect that. So I didn't want to talk to the police. I feel like I was just very vulnerable because I was medicated, heavily medicated, and I was just in this euphoric state of just being so happy that I was alive. I didn't want this negative news to just like rain down on me. And so I was like, no, I was so in denial. I was like, no, I don't want to talk to the police. And I told them, like, I said, if he can't be in here to hear what you're going to tell me, then I don't want to hear it. I was so loyal. I was so on his side, like, there's no way. And the police, I can imagine their frustration because they knew what I did not know yet. What I was not giving them the chance to tell me. So when I woke up, my abuser was not there, and I thought it was because he was hurt and so he was in another room. No, when I woke up, he was not there because he had been arrested. And I did request the police reports from that night, and specifically he was arrested for driving while intoxicated, DWI, as well as unlawful carry of a weapon. So the reason that it was an unlawful carry of a weapon was because he was on probation from the strangulation incident. He was not allowed to have a weapon in the vehicle, and there was one in the vehicle. So the police arrested him at the scene of the assault that night before I went to the hospital for those 2 charges. And so when I woke up in the hospital, he was in jail for that. And I didn't know right away. It's so hard for me to tell this story because there's so much that my brain has blocked out in what I believe is an attempt to protect me. When I woke up in the hospital, I didn't immediately have recollection of what led up to the assault. I only remembered being in front of that stage and being happy. Little by little, though, I started remembering bits and pieces. What I remember is after Randy Rogers had finished playing, I remember going with my abuser back to the bar line. When we got to the bar line, we ran into some of his friends, some of the guys. And with the guys were one of them had a wife, and then his sister was there. And then, there was a few other girls there, ladies. And so I was I was feeling good, and I was so excited to see those other girls there. And so we start taking shots. We're in the bar line, and the shot girl's there with a little tray of the little tube shots. And I just remember I took at least 2. After that, I don't remember exactly how many it was. But I remember taking shots with the girls. The memory is kind of in and out at this point. But I remember we were taking group pictures, with the whole group. I have some pictures of me and the girls there. And I remember one of the photos with the group, with the men included. I remember one of my abuser's friends either groping me or just touching me in an unwanted manner that made me just kind of flip. I am a survivor of sexual assault. I was raped twice. 2 separate occasions by 2 separate people that I trusted. And I'm sharing this because I feel like this is what triggered my reaction to being touched, being groped, and not wanting it. In both the incidents in which I was raped, I was not sober. And so I feel like that played a part in my reaction, because after I felt that touch, I got really upset and I confronted my abuser about it, expecting him to defend me. And he brushed me off. He blew me off completely. And I felt very unprotected. And I grew angry. That is all my recollection of that night. To date, no matter how hard I tried to remember, my abuser has told me parts of his perspective or his side, but my side doesn't match his side. I just don't remember. Imagine your last memory being you laughing, singing your heart out to a band you love, and then the next thing, singing your heart out to a band you love with a person that seemingly love you, and then the next day being told that they're guilty for your amputation, for causing it, guilty for running you over, or that they're a suspect. So can you put yourself in my place and imagine my denial, my disbelief? I didn't want to believe it. I spent a few days in the hospital. I want to say it was about 5 days in the hospital. They wanted to keep me there long enough so that I was able to transfer myself from the bed to the wheelchair. I couldn't immediately go to using crutches because my arm had been fractured. Both bones here were broken, and one of them came out here. That's what that scar is. And so now I have metal plates in each bone. Those plates will be there forever. So I couldn't use crutches. I was wheelchair bound. I couldn't bathe myself. I couldn't wipe my own ass. It is very hard. At the time, my abuser and I were living in an upstairs apartment, and the manager tried to work with us considering the situation. She tried to get us a downstairs apartment, but she didn't have any available for immediate move-in. So in the meantime, I moved in with a relative who had a single level home and let me stay in their one of their bedrooms after leaving the hospital. Mind you, I was still with my abuser. I didn't leave his side. I hadn't talked to the police yet. I hadn't given them a chance yet. So while I would stay with this relative, my abuser would stay with my son in our apartment. And he wasn't working at this time. He was looking for work at the time of the assault. And me being wheelchair bound gave him an excuse to prolong his unemployment. He wasn't looking for work. His excuse was he needed to take care of me. So I couldn't cook for myself. I couldn't bathe myself. I think I already said that. couldn't dress myself. I couldn't do anything for myself. It was so... So my abuser was supposed to come first thing in the morning, come straight to my relative's house to help me get up, get out of bed, feed me breakfast, bathe me, help me go to the bathroom. Like, I relied on him for everything. I was like a baby at this point. I relied on him for everything. He would take our son to daycare. You know, that was his responsibility. There were days, though, that he would go and have breakfast with the guys before going to tend to me. I'd lay in bed, waiting. I couldn't sleep. If you're an amputee, you know what phantom pain is. If you're not an amputee, phantom pain is your brain sending signals to the nerves that don't know they're not connected to a limb anymore. You get an itch, you get a pain, it's insane. My phantom pain was so bad. I describe it to my family and friends as a bear trap closing on it and just dragging all the way down. So my phantom pain caused insomnia. I was anxious, I was depressed, I had phantom pain. I could not sleep. So I would stay up all night till about 6 in the morning, sleep for about 2 hours, then be up again at 8. My abuser wouldn't get there till 10, 11, and that's not even the worst. He never once cried. I never cried. I hadn't cried about it. Not that I never cried about it, but at that point of my recovery, I had not cried yet. This is not even, we're probably in May. I had not cried about it yet, but he cried. He cried a lot, and not for my amputation. He cried because he was afraid that he was gonna go to prison for what he did to me, what the police believed he did to me. And I would console him. And I would tell him, it's gonna be okay. I was the one with a missing limb consoling my abuser. My family and my church had a plate sale for me, and they were raising funds for my medical bills because I needed a prosthetic, I needed therapy, I needed physical therapy. And he begged me to use that money for a lawyer for him. And I told him no. I felt like it was deceitful to the people that had donated, but I needed it. I wanted to walk again one day, and I needed it for that. And when I told him no, his mom reached out to me, begging me, literally texted me, I'm begging you, I will pay you back. And I just felt so, I don't even know how to describe it. This man did not care about me at all. My depression was getting so bad. I was questioning why God let me live. I felt useless. I could do nothing for myself. I felt like a burden When you have the right support, you don't feel that way. My family was great, but your spouse is supposed to be that number one person, and my spouse made me feel like a burden. Like it was burdening him to have to come and help me get up, get dressed, make me breakfast, when he could be out having breakfast with his friends instead. We finally were moved into a downstairs apartment, so I moved back in with him. This was in June. It did not take long for things to just come crashing down. There was an instance when we went to eat, him and I, our child, and 3 other people. And at that restaurant, my son fell back in his high chair. And my abuser got up and started talking down to me about why didn't I do anything? I didn't move fast enough. I had a broken arm and I was in a wheelchair. And he spoke to me as though I let it happen and I wanted it to happen, or I just a shitty mom for letting it happen. And he did this in front of these people, our friends. And I could just see the looks on their faces, the looks of pity and embarrassment for me. And I didn't say anything. I felt terrible because I couldn't go to get my son. With everything in me, I wanted to. I couldn't carry him. I couldn't roll out fast enough to get to him. It was a very disgusting feeling. It's so hard to feel helpless, to feel like a burden. It's humiliating to rely on someone that treats you like you are scum, like you are not deserving, like they wish you were dead. An argument we had, basically telling me that I needed to stop blaming my amputation on being a shitty mom. And one thing, if you know me, you know I take pride in the way that I care for and love my children. So it really hurt to hear that. And I felt low, and I felt like my abuser's life and my son's life would be so much better if I was not in it. They would be so much better without me. I'd never had those thoughts before. They call it suicidal ideation. Even though you're not thinking of doing it yourself, thoughts of wanting to die or be dead or be gone are considered suicidal ideations, and that's what I was experiencing. And I messaged my mom that day, and I told her I wanted to die. I told her I didn't want to be alive and that they would be better off without me, my son and my abuser. She contacted my aunts because my mom was out of town. She didn't live in the same city as I did. and my aunts went over and I cried. I sobbed like a baby. I don't know if it was that night or that week, but we got into another argument, my abuser and I. He used it as an excuse to leave. Let me remind you, I'm in a wheelchair. My right arm is broken. He left. My son had a fever. So my baby was only a year and a half. And I was left home by myself with him. I couldn't even take care of myself. And I remember looking at the time, and it was like 2, 3 in the morning. My abuser wasn't home yet. I called him, and it was just obvious he was drunk. I was terrified because I remember how he got when he drinks. I know how he gets. And I was so scared because here I am in the most vulnerable state that I could be, in a wheelchair with a broken arm, and he's drunk. I was scared for him to come home. I begged him to please sleep at his mother's, sleep it off, don't come home. And that's what happened. He didn't come home, but I called my mom, and my mom came for me. She picked me and my baby up, and I left. I left for the last time. The abuse didn't stop after I left. I filed for divorce. It was granted. And still, he continued. The truck that I had mentioned in my previous video that we bought together, that I traded my Jeep in for, we ended up trading it for an SUV. The SUV that was suspected of running me over. The traffic division of the police department gathered evidence from that vehicle that led them to believe that my abuser was one of the drivers that ran me over. Now, I like I said, I requested copies of the police reports, but it's very confusing because one of them says that there were 3 vehicles, and then the affidavit that was sent to the DA's office states that a witness saw only 2 vehicles. But both reports state that my abuser was driving one of the vehicles. While I was living with my parents after I left, I decided to finally speak to the police. It was at this meeting with the traffic sergeant that the evidence was disclosed to me. I was shown a picture of the interior of the car in which there was makeup smeared on the dashboard. The police sergeant told me it looked like my face had been shoved into the dash. The weather stripping on the passenger side front door was also ripped off, as though somebody, perhaps me, had tried to grab it, as though I was being forced from the vehicle. There was footage from a dash cam There was a truck parked at a gas station across from where the assault took place. And that's the dash cam footage that they have. And it shows me running away from a vehicle. I was being chased. And according to them, the vehicle matched the description of our SUV. They ran DNA tests for blood that was found on the undercarriage of our vehicle, which later showed only that it was human blood. They did not test it to see if it matched my blood. At this same meeting, he showed me photographs of fibers that were found on the undercarriage of our vehicle that matched the fibers from the socks that I was wearing. If you recall, I mentioned the socks that I wore were pink and blue, and I remember perfectly what socks they were, and those were the colors of the fibers found on the undercarriage of our SUV. There were also multiple witness statements that he briefly explained to me, where witnesses claimed that they saw a vehicle matching the description of our SUV running me over. Now I want to be clear. This case was sent to the district attorney's office. My abuser was charged with intoxication assault. He was indicted on these charges. The DA dropped these charges for lack of evidence. This case went through multiple attorneys. None of the attorneys that worked on the case are there anymore. And this is news as of last week. My abuser denies it. He denies any involvement. On the very few occasions that we spoke of the incident, of the assault, he denied running me over, but he admitted to forcing me out of the vehicle onto this highway. The first April Fool's Day following the assault, my abuser texted me saying, I'll put the texts up so that you can just pause the video and read them yourself. Earlier I mentioned how we had traded in the truck that we bought together for an SUV that was believed to have been involved in the assault. Well, that SUV had a payment that I could not afford, so in our divorce, he was ordered to either refinance it to get it out from under my name, because I was the primary, he was the co-signer. He needed to either refinance it or trade it in. So I signed over. There's like I don't know what kind of form it is, where you're basically signing over your rights, but that does not release you of any financial obligation. So it was his responsibility to get it traded. He was in the process. He used to be a car salesman. He worked with the guys that were helping him with the trade. This dealership held onto my car and was letting him drive a car that he had not been approved for yet, while nobody was making payments on my car, on that SUV. I was getting phone calls from the financer saying that I was behind on payments, 60 plus days, and it was affecting my credit. And when I would talk to them, the dealership, they would give me the runaround when I would try to talk to my abuser about it. He was awful. On one occasion, I was with my cousin. We had gone to pick up my son from visitation with my abuser, and the conversation came up about the car. He got upset and he told me, "Why don't you go jump in front of another car, you stupid bitch?" I called the police. I wanted to file a protective order because I couldn't take it. I could not handle his mental mind games. I could not handle that kind of verbal abuse. The police told me because he had not been physically violent that they could not do anything. So, and even recently in 2020, I filed for a motion to request a protective order, and it was denied because he has not been physically violent since our divorce. And my evidence of verbal harassment and mental abuse was not enough. There are a handful more other situations where he was abusive mentally, verbally, emotionally after I left. We ran into each other at a restaurant where I was there with 2 girlfriends and a few guy friends, and he was there with our son. And when he went to drop my son off back with me at the house that I was staying at, he started shouting at me that I was a drunk bitch and that I was probably fucking one of those guys. And those are not just words. Those are not things that you can just brush off, especially when they're coming from somebody that you have such a violent history with. Somebody that is literally a suspect in the case where you lost your leg. I was not sure how I was going to tell my story in this part. I was going to tell my amputation story because I've always been so afraid of the backlash that I could receive in sharing my story, because there's so much of it that happened that night that I don't remember. But what I do remember is still valid, and that's what I have come to accept. And I know what the police have on record, and I know what I experienced right after my amputation and even after I left, and what I've experienced since. I'm sorry if this story seemed like it was all over the place. That's how it is in my brain, and I can't help it. I really tried my best. Bear with me, please. I was literally shaking at the start of this video. I was almost like I felt like my body was trembling and my teeth wanted to chatter, like I was shivering. That's what it felt like, but I'm not cold. I think it was the nerves and the anxiety. I really hope that you guys watch this all the way through, because this was not easy to share. And these details were very scary for me to include. And I really want you to keep in mind the disclaimer that I stated at the beginning of this video, especially if you don't have good intentions. I've prayed on this. I have prayed about this. I've taken a few breaks in between recording to kind of just pray about it, because this has not been easy. My abuser is not in prison. He's not in prison for any offenses committed outside of our relationship. He's not in prison for the intoxication assault that he was indicted on. It was dropped, to be clear. I need to throw that in there. We share a child. We have orders in place for visitation. So yeah, I still deal with that person. If you or somebody that you know is suffering at the hands of an abusive partner, please help them. I will link several websites below. Please share my story. If you want to support me, subscribe to my channel, like my videos. I'll also link my Instagram down below in the description box. Follow me, I post a lot on my stories there. Just know, guys, everything discussed in this video today, it is as fucked up as it sounded, and it was. I came out a stronger person. I look back on it and I cannot believe that I survived that, because I know if I could survive that, I can do anything. If I can survive that, you can do anything. I'm so sorry if it seems like I'm talking low, but like I said, it's really late and my kids are sleeping in the next room. So maybe turn your captions on. I'm so sorry. And justice system, do better. Police departments, do better. DA offices, do better. Judicial districts, do better. Judges, do better. Like, give a shit about the victims and the survivors. I'm so tense. I'm gonna need a massage after this, but once this is finally up and posted, I think I'll be able to take like a really deep breath. God bless you guys, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you so much.